Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention. I'm Karen Freeland, your guide to ditching corporate and designing a life you love. If you're ready to shift your mindset, boost your confidence, and finally take action on that dream career or business, you're in the right place. It's your time. Let's rock your reinvention. Well, I just got back from a silent retreat. And whenever I tell someone that I went on a silent retreat, I get this shocked reaction. What? Silent? Why? Why would anyone in their right mind elect to do that? And I have to admit, when I first heard about silent retreats, I was skeptical myself. I think most people question it because they can't imagine not talking for 3 days or being alone with their thoughts for 3 days. And when I tell them that I'm going, for me, they can't fathom me not speaking for 3 days. I do love to talk. But not only did I succeed in not talking, I actually loved it. And I want to go back for another one, but longer this time. Yes, really. I would love to try a 5-day silent retreat. So today I want to talk a little bit about what to consider when choosing a retreat center, why you should give yourself this gift of silence, and I will share some of the things that I wish I had brought with me. For starters, it is really important to choose a retreat center and location that aligns with your values. Some sites are going to be more religious in nature. Other retreats may be more spa or relaxed focused. Others might be centered around yoga or another mindfulness practice. So you need to figure out which one of those is going to best suit you. You also need to decide if you want to travel or stay local. This may depend on your budget and the amount of time that you can be away. I knew that I wanted to stay within driving distance and I wanted to just kind of do a weekend thing. I knew the kids and my husband and everybody was going to be fine with mom gone from Friday to Sunday. Do you want a silent retreat or do you prefer being able to converse with other retreat goers? Not every retreat requires silence. And depending on your goals, you may or may not want the ability to chat with others. I personally loved not having to be on. That may also determine how long you go for. Being my first time with silence, I chose the shortest possible period of Friday to Sunday, and I would highly recommend you do the same if this is your first time so that you can really ease into that. I chose the Ignatius House, which is in Atlanta, because I specifically wanted something faith-based and I wanted it to be about 2.5 hours from my house. Like it was driving distance. So that was very convenient for me. I also, by the way, have no affiliation with the Ignatius House. I'm not getting paid to share this with you. I'm simply giving you my honest thoughts and opinions about the experience that I had. The next piece is to choose a retreat topic or a theme that resonates with you and will help you achieve your goals for the retreat. So I selected a women's retreat that focused on the second half of life, the transitions that you might be experiencing, and how to find your purpose in this latter season. And given my focus on reinventing, it was the perfect topic. But you may prefer a couples retreat or a retreat with mixed genders. It's all about what feels most comfortable to you. And they usually have a schedule printed on their website, so you can just go and look and pick the retreat theme and topic that is going to work for you. You also need to consider if you'll go alone or have some friends tag along. Now, I personally chose to go alone, and I am so glad that I did. For one, I didn't want to be tempted to talk. I also didn't want to feel obligated to eat or hang out with anyone while I was there. And I did see those things happening with some of the women that came in groups. But most of all, I wasn't sure what emotions were going to surface when I was there. And I wanted to be more anonymous so that I could just really be authentic in my experience and allow all of those emotions just to be there, and to be raw and not feel judged. And lastly, what kind of retreat format do you want? Now, if you've been doing retreats for a while, you could probably do a self-directed retreat, but you can choose between that or a guided retreat. And if this is your first retreat, I would recommend something guided because they will have a structure for you to move through that focuses on that topic and theme for the retreat. The way mine worked is you arrive on Friday, everyone checks in and has dinner together. You can actually talk during dinner. So this was like around 6 p.m. ish. And then you have your first talk or prayer reflection time. And the person facilitating the retreat basically presents a reflection opportunity. So our first one was titled Come As You Are. And then at the end of that talk, you are officially entered into silence, and they give you a handout or two for you to go away and reflect on. Now, you don't have to use the handout if you don't want to, but they're there and they're incredibly helpful. Then you have the rest of the night for yourself to just like, I sat by the fireplace. There were some beautiful paintings and things that I could just sit in front of and reflect on. And then eventually, whenever you feel up to it, you go to bed. There's no curfew. Some of the women were out walking the grounds at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. They were definitely far more adventurous than I. The next day, you wake up, you have breakfast, and then there's another 4 talks throughout that day. You have lunch, you have dinner. Again, all of this is taking place in silence. And it was really cool is that after one of those talks, instead of a typical handout, we actually had a coloring activity and we had all these colored pencils and we could just sit in community with these other women and color. And I just thought that that was really cool. It was a different form of prayer. There was also the option to meet with a spiritual director if you wanted and to go to confession and mass. Now, none of this is mandatory. You could skip out and just sleep if you wanted to or go for a hike. It's all very flexible. And obviously, if you don't go to a retreat that is religious based, right, you won't have like mass or confession or those kinds of options. I just don't want you to think that, if you're going on a retreat, you're going to have someone else's faith shoved down your throat. There were a lot of women there from different faith backgrounds, and they all felt like very welcome, and they weren't bothered at all by the options that were presented. And then on Sunday, we had breakfast, another prayer reflection opportunity, and then we had an optional session to come together and share our individual experiences, which I found incredibly moving. I did not share. I really just sat there and sort of listened to the other women's stories, and that was really beautiful just to kind of hear some of the other things that people were going through. And then at this point, we could talk again. We had our final brunch together and departed. It honestly went so fast, at least I thought it did. Now, so that's a little bit about what to expect and some things to consider if you're going to do a silent retreat. But why give yourself the gift of a silent retreat? We live such busy, hectic lives. We are constantly plugged in, whether it's for work or socially. Someone always needs something from us, whether that's a spouse or kids, friends, volunteer organizations that we're part of. And even when we're alone, I find that so many women have the TV on or there's music playing. Something is happening that has still sound and noise and distracts us from our innermost thoughts. We rarely have time to sit in silence. And in my case, the way I like to think about it was go on a vacation with God and just allow myself to sit with him and be loved. Not to mention, I didn't have to cook for anyone or do any dishes for 3 days, which was glorious. Right? That's always a bonus. But honestly, being silent for me was the easy part. The harder part was clearing my mind. And this is why I want to do another one, because I just found that my brain would not shut off until maybe like 7 p.m. on Saturday. That was the first time I was really able to sit in silence with a blank mind and not have an agenda or something that I was thinking about. And of course, then I had to leave at noon the next day, and I was like, whoa, where did that go? And I think the more opportunities we give ourselves to be silent, the easier that becomes. It's kind of like training yourself, And so, if you've never done something like this, I would highly encourage you to go and experience it, because what I experienced is probably going to be completely different from what you experienced, right? The things that I took away and the way that God moved in my life will probably be completely different for you because you have a different situation. And that's the beauty of it, right? It's like you don't know what you're going to uncover or discover through a silent retreat. So, what did I get out of this experience? Besides a raging headache and a UTI. Yes, I'll explain later. A retreat is such a beautiful chance to recalibrate, right? To see where God is asking you to go, or your higher power, what he's calling you to, where you might be falling short and you could do better, and where you need more gratitude and the ability to count those blessings for all that you have and all that you've been given, even when things aren't perfect. And I feel like I was really able to accomplish all of that on some level. Now, are all my problems fixed? No, let's be real. Do I have the next 10 years of my life mapped out? Definitely not. But I do have the trust and desire to follow whatever God's will is for me in this season. And I was able to surrender so much to him in those short 3 days. When I first got home from the retreat, I really wanted to come on here and just share all that God revealed to me and how he moved in my life. But that's not really what's going to be the most helpful to you. And so much of it is just incredibly personal, and I kind of want to keep that between me and God. If you go on a retreat, I guarantee you, like I said, your experience is going to be totally different because we're different people with different beliefs and different goals. And there's no right or wrong way to benefit from a retreat. Sometimes it's just a form of burnout healing, right? And you just need that time to take a pause to refresh. And there may not be as much of a spiritual component involved. And that's okay too. That is just as valuable. But if I could pull out 3 things to share with you that could potentially be of interest and help you on your journey, it would be these 3 things. One being, God revealed several things to me that I don't like about others, but that I could clearly see I'm doing myself. Right? He really held up that mirror to me. One of those things being short with others, right? When I get stressed, I start to lose my patience, right? And I'm a little snappier with others. Interrupting others, sometimes just to hear my own voice, let's be real. Ignoring me and prioritizing their cell phone when I'm trying to connect with them. How many times have I done that to my husband, to my kids, to someone else? And it wasn't like he was saying, Karen, you're a screw up. Look at all these things you're doing wrong. Right? But he was just allowing me to see that we're not so different and that others show me grace for my faults all the time. And I need to extend that grace back to them in return. And it was a very humbling realization. Humility is something that I've been working on for a while now, and it really came to light for me during this retreat. It's also very applicable and actionable, right? I can do something about that and then improve my relationships as a result. So for you, where do you need to show some people in your life grace? Is there something about others that really irritates you, but that you realize maybe you're even doing to some degree in your own life? Hey, when we can recognize those things, we can turn that around. And we can offer more grace and we can have better relationships as a result. The second thing came about during confession. And this was honestly one of the best confession experiences I've ever had in my life. And I was sharing a little bit about my angry heart and how much this has been troubling me. And I know you don't really see that side of me, so this might come as a shock and you're thinking, Karen, you're Miss Personality, like always so bubbly. What do you mean you have an angry heart? But I definitely have some anger management issues. I just don't show them on the podcast. But the priest was so kind and he was so caring with me. And he said, I'm going to say something that's probably going to shock you. And he said, your standard for yourself is higher than God's standard for you. I really had to sit with that for a moment. I was like, are you sure? I don't know about that. But really, if I look inward in my heart, I knew that that was true. I expect so much of myself in my business, in my faith, in my family, in my friend. Like everything has to be an A++ performance. And when I fall short, I am so hard on myself. And it's not about getting a pass now, right? I don't get to excuse any of my behavior, but now I have the freedom to be kind to myself and to gently correct things and bring them back into alignment when I notice that I'm getting angry about things. What a gift. I mean, the entire retreat honestly was worth it for those 8 minutes in confession. So for you, is there an emotion that is taking over in your life? Do you have standards for yourself that are just unrealistic? And chances are, if you're listening to this show, you do, because you are a high achieving, successful woman. And the last thing I'll share actually didn't happen at the retreat. It happened on the drive home. It was super cloudy and I was starting to get drowsy driving home from Atlanta. So I was looking for a Panera Bread specifically because I had a gift card that I wanted to use up. And so I pull off this exit and I'm like, where's the Panera Bread? It's not like right there, you know? Who puts something on an exit sign if it's not like within a mile of the exit? So I pull over and I'm like, where is this Panera? And I look it up on my GPS and it's still like a few minutes down the road. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But you know, the Holy Spirit is doing its thing and it's like, keep going. Remember, you have that gift card you have to use. So I'm like, okay. So I'm driving down the road and I finally pull into the parking lot. And there he is, a presumably homeless man sitting on a bench with a sign. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I know the assignment. So I go in, I order my coffee, and I'm thinking about what can I order this homeless man sitting outside right now. And I'm starting to like overcomplicate it, right? Because I'm like, I don't know what he likes to eat. What if he has food allergies? And I'm like, I don't know, God, what do you want me to get him? Maybe a loaf of bread, some mac and cheese. What if he's lactose intolerant? And I'm just making this way harder than it needs to be, as I typically tend to do. So I land on a bagel and a cup of water so that he can hydrate. And now I'm plotting how to give it to him without being attacked or something, right? Because, hey, listen, a lot of people who are homeless do have mental issues. I don't know what could happen. I'm by myself. I'm not very big, you know? So I'm like, okay, am I going to pull up? Am I going to roll down the window? What's this going to work like? And the Holy Spirit just kicks in again. And he's like, Karen, just pull up next to him and get your butt out of the car and go hand it to him face to face. And so I do. And that's when I truly see him. And his face was completely disfigured, right? There's a tube coming out of his throat, his trachea, I assume. And he has like no chin really. It's kind of like sunken. Like his face just like doesn't come out of his head. Do you know? I don't know how to explain this. You have to kind of see it to know what I mean. But I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so I hand him the food and I don't know what else to say other than God bless you. And he says, God bless you back. And I return to my car. And as I'm pulling out of the parking lot, I have to drive back by him. And I see him looking in the bag. And I just see this huge smile come across his face. And he looks up at me and I see him mouth, God bless again. And I just smile. I give him like a big wave back as I'm pulling off. And in that moment, it was like God was showing me so many things, right? Just about the importance of being the hands and feet of Jesus and like really giving back to the community and being there for those who so many other cars just drove right by him, right? And just didn't even stop to look. But he was allowing me to live my micro purpose. Karen, what the heck's a micro purpose? We often get caught up with our macro purpose. Like, what is our big purpose in life? What is the job you're calling me to? Do you want me to have kids or not? These big life questions, right? That we think about as our purpose. But I think if that's the only purpose we focus on, we're actually missing the boat. Because every day you have these little opportunities to live out your purpose, your micro purpose. And so in that moment, I was able to provide for this guy who just needed a little love and care, right? I was in that specific location at that specific time for a reason. And I got to bring this person a little bit of love and compassion. Not because I'm some hero, not because, oh, wow, Karen, I'm so great or this or that. No, I just did what God required of me in that moment. And it's just that reminder for me that, like, I have so many blessings, and it's not for me to keep and store away in a 401k and keep in a bank account. It's for me to return to the community and to pay it forward and to give it to others and live out those little micro purposes each and every day. Now, I got a whole lot more out of the retreat, but I don't want to bore you with all of it. I really want you to go experience this for yourself and have your own realizations and epiphanies to find your own, yes, macro, but also micro purposes that you can live out each and every day. So I want to wrap up with just a few things that I recommend bringing with you when you go. And again, some of this is going to depend on if you fly or if you're within driving distance. So take it with a grain of salt. But I highly recommend you bring your own water if you can. I will be honest, the water did not taste very good. I'm also kind of a water snob. So I mostly ended up drinking coffee, which landed me in urgent care the day after I got home with a UTI. So if you don't bring water, drink loads of it while you're there, even if it tastes bad, so that you don't end up with a UTI. I also recommend tissues and headache medicine. That could be Aleve, Excedrin, whatever. I was so overcome with emotion that I cried most of the first 12 hours, and that resulted in a raging headache for me. Fortunately, the retreat did have a lot of boxes of tissues, but sometimes I was outside or somewhere where tissues weren't accessible, and so I was glad to have them on me. But I did not think to pack any headache medicine, and so I seriously regretted that. I also encourage you to pack your own journal and pen. They did give me a journal, but I'm a bit of a writer, and I had my own, and I used some of the pages in the one that they gave me, but I just wanted to have my own journal that had a special message on the front that just worked for me. So I encourage you to bring something, and they did not give me a writing utensil, so I was glad that I had one, and I would encourage a spare just in case yours runs out of ink. I do wish that I had brought my yoga mat. This obviously was not a yoga retreat, but there were times where I could have used it, and I didn't get much physical activity that weekend, even though there were about 1.5 miles of trails that you could go on. They had a spider situation there. Georgia, y'all, has some crazy big spiders. They are next level. And I was just like, yeah, I don't do spiders, so no thank you. So I didn't get a chance to go on the trails. If I had my yoga mat, I could have at least put that out on the ground and done some yoga, and that would have given me a little bit of physical activity. The other thing I would recommend is comfy clothing. This is not a fashion show, and nobody wants to hear your heels clicking around in their silence or your noisy track pants rustling as you move around. So athleisure wear is great. Comfy jeans and a t-shirt, maybe a hoodie. I highly recommend dressing in layers because some of the rooms were incredibly cold. Yeah, I definitely was a little chilly in a few of the rooms during the day. And I found a lot of people didn't even bother to do hair or makeup, which was kind of nice, right? Just throw it up in a pony. I wore braids the first day, whatever, just go and be super casual. This is just a place for you to unwind and relax and be your authentic self. And I would say bring a book or two. Since it was a faith-based retreat, I brought my Bible. I also needed to finish St. Teresa's Story of a Soul, so I brought that. But you could bring a fun fiction book or a self-help book, whatever you want. It just gives you something to read, maybe before bed to help you go to sleep because you're in, a different place, and there was no fan and I'm used to that white noise, so I didn't have that. I needed to get myself really sleepy. I was a little worried that I might get bored, so I think that's part of why I brought the books too, but I never did. And because they gave you the handouts after every prayer reflection, like there was always something for me to read or ponder or think about. So always good to have and not need rather than need and not have. So maybe pack a book or two. And those are the main things that I would say you want to make sure you have when you go on a retreat. I hope you will go have this experience. You deserve this gift. We all deserve this gift. And I know that big things are going to happen for you if you give yourself the opportunity to unplug like that. Now it's time for you to go rock your reinvention. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. If you want more accountability and support, I've got your back. Book a complimentary Empowered Exit Strategy call today. Visit KarenFreeland.com to learn more and book your 45-minute session. Until next time, stay fabulous.